Welcome to another episode of All Over Voiceover with Kif VH. I'm your host, Kif VH. We've had a significant loss in the voiceover community, certainly in the Los Angeles voiceover community and at CESD. Lori Tritel, who was a wonderful not only voice talent but voice coach, and just a really, really great person, passed after a swift and, unbeknownst to many of us, quiet battle with lung cancer. And I felt it would be appropriate, rather than to redirect you back to our conversation from last year, but to just take a second to remember Lori and her friendship and legacy and the impact that she's made on so many voice actors, in particular beginning voice actors, people who came to her to find out how to get into this business. And I thought it would be, I don't know. I mean, how do you process loss? So how I'm processing this loss. And in all honesty, I didn't know Lori super well. But we were always very friendly, and I really enjoyed having her on the show, and that's the memory that I want to share with you. So I've cut down the episode a little bit to take out some of my retelling of the same old stories that I find myself telling, and sharing not only what I discovered in re-listening to this episode, but also some really powerful exercises and things that you can learn from the legacy of this wonderful woman. So here's my conversation with Lori from last year. And I'm so excited to welcome into studio my friend, and we share the CESD holiday party every year. And she's an amazing voice coach and teacher, as well as a tremendous voiceover talent, the lovely, the talented Lori Tritel. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me.
You bet.
I'm excited to be here.
I've known you when we met, I want to say, I think I started at CESD in 2011.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably when we met, because I've been there quite a bit longer than that.
Awesome.
I've been there since 1999.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Where are you from originally? I know so little about
I know.
about you. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Los Angeles.
Are you really?
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up here.
That's great.
So I have no illusions of how difficult it is to be in this business.
Were your family in the business at all?
No, absolutely not. Nobody was in the business.
What led you down that path?
I started. I liked music, and originally I wanted to be a songwriter and a singer. And my mom bought a piano, and nobody played piano. My dad said, why did you buy a piano? Nobody plays it. And she said, somebody will learn how to play it. If it sits here long enough, someone will play it. And it happened to be me. And I started playing and playing guitar, and I started writing music, and that eventually led me to singing, piano bar singing, which I did for 12 years, is how I made my living. So
wait, so piano bar singing.
Yeah.
How do you make a living doing that? Are you paid, or are you tipped?
Yeah. No, you're paid. I worked in every major hotel in Los Angeles, and a lot of restaurants too.
No kidding.
Yeah, like for 6 months, a year, 3 months. I had an agent, and there was a circuit, and you just kind of. I played piano and guitar, and I worked the Biltmore's, Sheraton, Hyatt, Regency.
What a gas! Like what? And what would you do? Original stuff, or would you do a combination, standards, or
a couple original things? But mostly I did standards,
okay.
Jazz standards and torch tunes, and as the blender went on in the background, it was it was really. I remember, like, every once in a while, I'd just be involved in the song, and it would get really quiet, and I'd be like in the zone, involved in the song, and I'd open my eyes, and the audience would be quiet. And it was just so weird, because usually there was a lot of chatter and blenders and, things like that. So
that's great.
Yeah, it was cool.
It's I don't know why this sparked, but Tom Waits said that if you can make people stop on a crowded street corner talking about Jesus and they stop and listen to you, you're a good speaker. If you can get people stop their chatter in a hotel bar, you know? Yeah,
well, it didn't happen often, but
still.
It happened, yeah. And that's how I made my living for like over 12 years.
Wow.
And then, in fact, that's kind of how I got into voiceover. Because I was working at the Huntington Sheraton in Pasadena. And during the break, a couple guys were in there having drinks. And during the break, they invited me to sit down, and which I did. And they said, we would like to set you up with one of our friends on a blind date.
All right.
I'm like, okay, who? And it turned out to be Bill Ratner, who is a very big in voiceover and a big promo guy, does just a ton of stuff. And so he and I met, and we went out for a little while, and he said, you should do voiceover. And I said, what's that?
Yeah.
You know, and he told me, and he turned me on to a class that was kind of an ongoing class. And so I was singing at night, and I was going to this class once a week. And I really dug it. I really liked voiceover. Like, there were no hecklers.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about hitting all those notes. It was really nice. And I could still express myself through my voice. And it came very naturally to me because I already had a good relationship with my voice. I was very familiar with pitch and pacing and all of that stuff. So voiceover came really naturally to me.
That's great. It's to have that foundation of the music background too. I discover how much that, well, like you say, that having that relationship with your body of knowing how to control your voice is so important.
Yeah, I think singers have an easier time sometimes in that aspect, because if we talk about the script and the words being like musical notes. Because a lot of times I think people make the mistake of reading all of the notes as if they're all quarter notes and everything sounds the same, and it gets very reedy. But when you start to think about them as musical notes, we're going to take some quarter notes, mix it with some eighth notes, let's stretch out a word here, make a half note. So singers and musicians they get that kind of language.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
And that's interesting that you were doing jazz too. That helps.
I love jazz. There were very few people at that time who were into jazz, but I was into Gershwin. I loved Gershwin, and I sang all of those songs. I loved them. And the more obscure, the better. I would find the most obscure songs, jazz tunes to sing.
What's that about? Why the obscure songs that appeal to you?
They're like secrets that you can, they're like secrets. One of my favorite songs was Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most. I used to love singing that tune. And it's just like a story that would, kind of like a voiceover script, a beginning, a middle, and an end,
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah.
I liked it, but I don't really miss it too much. I got burned out after 12 years. So I was singing and then doing the class, and then actually there was a strike. There was an actor's strike, and I was so much of a beginner. I mean, I was still just taking the class. I was not involved in any of the acting, professionally or anything. But I got invited to go to Voicecasters in Burbank to read for something. And Bob Lloyd, the owner of Voicecasters, said, are you represented? Do you have a demo or anything? And I said, no. And he said, you need a demo. You could be working. So, I mean, that week, I made a demo with my teacher, Arlen Miller. And I submitted it, or somebody submitted it for me, I think, to Vanessa Gilbert. And she was within a week I was signed with her.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
To pull together like a demo in a week too, like that's for some reason that seems like, from all this conventional wisdom that I hear about demo production and all that other kind of stuff, that it's a month to 3 month process and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well,
and that wasn't my experience when I put my reel together either, but I'm just curious, like, I'm knocking my mouse off the table. But like, what was that process like when you put
Back
your reel
then?
together? Yeah, with Arlen.
Well, Arlen and I knew each other really well, so we had a really clear idea of what I was going to put on there. And so I think that's
kind of the key.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it took just a week to get it done,
Sure.
but it took just a week to, or two to set up the time, record everything.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he was cutting tape, which I heard you talking about with your wife on one of your shows. So, and then it was done, I had this little cassette, which I probably still have, but I don't know how can I play it? They don't even.
There's the resurgence of vinyl is starting to lead to a resurgence of cassette decks.
Oh, thank God! Because
So now you can play.
Most of my career is on cassette.
That's great. And you can hook up a USB thing and digitize it.
Okay, all right, let's do it.
Let's
do it. Yeah. So, so I made I got the demo. Vanessa signed me. And then slowly but surely, I'll never forget it, because I think that a lot of people, in thinking about making a transition from their day job or their job into just voiceover, it can be a scary transition, because you're not sure if you're going to start making a living.
Right.
And I'll always remember the summer that I decided to stop singing. I was singing at the Renaissance Inn in Redondo Beach or something. And I was just there 2 nights a week. And they went dark on those 2 nights. They decided to stop the music. And I had a choice of like, well, do I look for another singing gig, or do I take the summer off and see where this voiceover thing takes me? Wow. And I decided to take the summer off, and I never looked back. Never looked back.
That is such a powerful moment to have.
It is. It is. I think you have to have some money saved. You have to have a safety net. I would not suggest anyone doing that.
Just do it. I'm going to leave the accounting firm.
Yeah.
Just jump off. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have a safety net. You have to go, okay, I'm going to give this, and plus you have to know what you're doing. I mean, I had been studying for 3 years. I studied with Arlen before I made a demo.
Yeah.
Because I don't like to hear the word no. I don't like that. So I wanted to make sure that when I made my demo, I was going to get a yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to take the leap, but I don't like to see people taking it unless they have a way of paying their rent still, and for a few months at least,
Yeah. You can't. You'll end up resenting and hating that whole concept of risk. If you get burned by it.
Yeah. You just have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Be smart about it. And it sounds like you were more than prepared, and I was more than prepared. I had been studying, like any profession that anyone goes into, you have to study it and invest time and a certain amount of money.
And end up trusting yourself too, to be able to weather when it doesn't go exactly the way you hope.
Which it won't many times.
Because it's just like everything else. It's a journey with,
with lessons.
Yeah, that's right.
With lessons, I mean, we all have stuff to learn. You and I picked voiceover to learn it from.
Yes.
In a way.
You just blew my mind just then. You're right. That voiceover is the medium in which I'm learning about the world.
And yourself and
myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just the vehicle. The lessons that, I just hit the mic, folks. The lessons that we learn in voiceover, or that I've learned, could have been learned, I don't know, in plumbing, or I don't know, like the life lessons, but I chose voiceover.
Yeah.
To get it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you sign with Vanessa Gilbert. What happens after that?
And then I was with her for maybe a year or two. I don't know, maybe less. And then Bob Lloyd again at Voicecasters. I was reading for him one day, and he said SBV was looking for SPV was looking for someone like me. I don't know. Now when I look back on it, that doesn't really make sense that SPV was looking for someone like me. But
was Bob Lloyd like getting finder's fees?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether, because when I think about it now, I'm just thinking about like, why would someone say that? I don't know, but I remember him saying that. SBV is or maybe he said SBV is always looking for people like you. That would make more sense.
Okay.
And so I sent them my demo and they signed me.
Wow.
And so I was with them for 6 years. And I had a really good career going commercially. I did a lot of really lucrative campaigns, and I was happy.
Yeah.
But I started to feel like I wanted to grow again, and I wanted to do some animation, and I had not sold myself as an animation person. I didn't really know anything about it. I was very, cosmetic in my reads and smiley and warm, and had never played a mean bee with an itch ever in my life.
Right.
So I started taking these animation classes. And
where were you studying? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. Well, they were private classes. I studied with several people. Nothing really clicked until I got to Michael Bell's class. And that's where I met him.
Yeah.
And he was teaching. He doesn't teach classes now regularly, but back then he was. And that's where I met Michael Bell. And I took his animation class, and he really was the first person that pushed me and kind of poked at those parts of me that were there and just kind of simmering. Yeah. And somebody just needed to take the lid off the pot,
Yeah.
And he was able to do that and give me permission. And I remember leaving his class feeling like I was on cloud 9. Have you ever had that experience?
I have. It is. I felt that way studying with both Fraley and with Bob Bergen as well. Like Bob, both of them came to Chicago when I was in Chicago.
Nice.
And all of that work and so much of the work in Chicago was commercial, and I really excelled in the commercial market there.
Yeah.
But same kind of thing. I felt like, I really want to see if I can do it. I want to know. And I booked a couple video games in Chicago. But what you keep hearing in the conventional wisdom, which is true, is if you want to do animation, then you've got to come to LA. That's just where it is. And I know that there's some in Canada as well. There are places around. But on the whole, if you want to go to a go-see, you kind of got to be there.
Yeah.
But Bob brought a sort of, a session in a kit sort of idea. We went to Joby Cerny's place, American Cerny, I think is the name of the studio. And Bob had a class of 12 people and then sides from something. And then basically he trained us and talked us through how to do stuff. And then we did 2 episodes of this show. And Bob cast everything.
Nice.
And floor directed.
That must have been great for you guys.
Yeah, it was marvelous to kind of get a sense of, I think that class, along with different privates with Pat, and I flew out here to LA to take classes with Pat Fraley.
Wow.
But what Bob's class gave me was a sense of confidence that I could be competitive and that I could work.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
That's really huge. And you probably had fun.
I had a blast.
So,
I had an absolute blast.
When you have for me, having a commercial career and then moving into that territory of letting go and getting goofy and silly and elastic or mean and cruel and sadistic or whatever the character requires, it was so freeing. It was so exciting to start discovering all of these people that had been living inside me. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And they're like all coming to the surface going, I want to come to the party. Let me come. I want to host it, I don't know if you ever practice voices, but, or accents. I'm sure you do. But,
constantly.
And this happens, when I'm practicing or when any of my students are practicing, that you start with one accent or one character in mind, and all of a sudden you're going from Irish to Spanish, or somebody else is coming in,
Right.
And you're like, who is this person?
Who's this person?
It's
like it is like the United States of Terror, right? The show that Toni Collette is on, the schizophrenic thing where you got multiple characters coming up and giving voices to it. It happens all the time. Because I do voice matching, I'm always I'll hear someone or see someone who's like, oh, they have a movie coming out, I should probably work on their voices. And then, but because there's a new crop of actors whose names I don't know, so I really have to pay closer attention to stuff. I'm like, can you do John Richmond? Like, I don't know who John Richmond is. I need to figure this out. But James Arnold Taylor has this he does a one-man show, like a 1-hour one-man show, and he has like a flow chart of how all these cartoon characters, especially sort of like the Dawes Butler, the Mel Blancs, and like some of the Simpsons characters, how they're all linked with subtle shifts in pitch, tone, and placement. Right.
Well, I talk about that all the time in my classes, about how, if you're starting with like a New York accent and I'm talking to you here in my regular pitch, and then all of a sudden if I lower it just a little bit, all of a sudden now I have two characters because I lowered it, and if I lower it even more, now I have three characters. And if I could lower it even more, and then you add maybe a little speech impediment to it, where she maybe talks out of the side of her mouth, and she becomes like maybe a troll, and if I make her run out of breath, she starts to sound like Joan Rivers. So you just kind of I describe it as like the levers on a soundboard.
Yeah.
You take the pitch going down, you take the pitch going up, and all of a sudden you have more than one character.
Oh my God, you have like 8 characters based strictly on one regional dialect.
And pitch.
And pitch.
And then you can do that with different accents. And then it's like a Mr. Potato Head. You put a speech impediment, you take it off, you put an accent. So it's fun.
That's awesome.
It's really fun. But when we're practicing, the different characters will come in. And sometimes I'll have students, because they'll always stop and say, oh, darn it, I lost the voice. I'm like, just keep going. Let's see who shows up.
Yeah.
Whoever shows up, let them show up.
That's great.
If you're working on a specific accent, yes, your default voices are going to want to try to come in and bully your practice session. And you have to say no. You have to stay out of the room today.
I'm deliberately trying to work on nailing this French dialect.
I'm working on Susan Sarandon. You can't come in.
You're not allowed to
come
in.
But then there's other ways to practice where you let everybody come in.
Yeah.
And our kids think our kids and neighbors think we're crazy.
Think we're nuts.
Yeah, you have to tell your neighbors, because I when I'm teaching privately, from where I live, a lot of times we're doing video game stuff, and I'll try to go off mic here, but it's like, look out, and that kind of thing, and my neighbors know what I do, so they don't call the police,
That's good. So, how'd you get into teaching? What led you into that place?
I was always kind of teaching. It was always something that gave me reward. And I taught music at a private school for a little while to teenagers. I've just always I was an exercise instructress, is what we were called.
Instructress?
For like probably 12 years.
Oh, wow.
At one of the, I was, that's what I did before I sang.
Wow.
So I did it, and then while I was singing and doing voiceover and everything, I was still teaching exercise.
Okay.
So, so I've always kind of known that I like teaching.
Yeah.
And SAG was having a diversity seminar event, and they sent out an email saying, would you like to be on the panel? And I'll never forget that turning point in my life, because I was sitting in front of my computer looking at the email going, oh God, this makes me nervous just even thinking about it. And I went, yes, and I typed it in really fast. Yes, and I hit click, and just like, yes, and I went, oh my God, what have I done?
Now I got to deal with this thing.
Yeah.
What was that about? Was it about being up and talking about it?
Yeah, because my experience isn't stage. My experience is like piano bar and singing and being in my little cocoon. And you can watch or not watch, but here I am all protected, and which is probably one of the reasons I like voiceover so much too, because that's kind of that same feeling.
Yeah.
So I went downtown to the seminar. There were a few people there that I knew. Andre Stoika, Dave Fenoy was there.
Oh, Dave.
And we walked onto this stage, and the light was really bright, and I was like, I can't even see these people. What's going on?
Right.
And we walked in, and my heart was beating, and I sat down, and we started taking questions from the audience, and I started wanting to answer every question. I was like, I wanted to say, okay, y'all can go home now, because I got this. I got this. I wanted to share everything I knew.
Yeah.
Which is not, not everybody wants to share everything they know.
That's very true.
They want to keep it to themselves, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you gotta know this.
Yeah.
This is so great.
I'm evangelical about this stuff.
Yeah.
I really am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, that's okay. So I was ready. I just like, everybody go home. I got this. Of course, I didn't say that, because that would have been really rude. But I wanted to.
Yeah.
And afterwards, a few people came over to me and said, do you have a card? And I just I realized that this was something that maybe I could do. And at the same time, Randy Thomas, who was the voice of the Academy Awards for many years, maybe she still is, I'm not sure, was teaching a very small voiceover class.
Okay.
And she needed a sub one night. So this kind of all happened at this, you're looking at me, Kif is looking at me right now, you guys, like, oh, okay, one of those times when the stars all line up and everything happens for a reason kind of looks.
Yeah.
And I went and I subbed for her, and I remember that night too, and there were only like 4 people, but they all came to my first voiceover class. So my first voiceover class was maybe 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
And that was, at least 12 years ago, probably.
Wow.
And I just started, I would pass out flyers, and it just spread through word of mouth.
Yeah.
And, it's been great. I mean, I'm not a big machine. I'm not a big school.
Sure.
I don't have an accountant and all that stuff. I don't have a big schedule. It's once a week for 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. And, it's all word of mouth.
Oh, fantastic.
It's all word of mouth. So, agents, managers, other actors, they just refer people to me,
and two of my guests are students of yours, former students of both Brian T. Delaney, and Eric Lopez.
Yeah. Both great guys.
And maybe more. I don't know.
There's probably more.
more.
There's probably more. Yeah. I've had, Aaron Torpy.
Aaron Torpy? No kidding.
Guy named Walker Roach. I don't know if you know him, but he's a really talented guy.
Awesome.
Oh gosh, I know I'm forgetting people, but
sure, that's all right.
But quite a few.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I'm teaching. I'm going along teaching, and every once in a while, I would call Michael Bell, my old teacher, and ask if he wanted to guest direct.
Nice. Yeah.
And he always said yes.
Awesome.
So he would come in and guest direct, and people were just so thrilled because Michael Bell is very high profile, well known he was in Transformers and Rugrats and Smurfs, and he's so talented and very passionate guy. So one day after he had guest directed, he called me the next day and he said, I want to talk to you about a project. I would like to put together a teaching DVD, and I would like for you to do the commercial part of it. Uh-huh. And he would do the animation part. So it was really cool because,
that's great.
Because in 1999, I met him as a teacher. We never didn't socialize. We weren't close friends. But every once in a while, he would come into my life for a sec, just for he's the reason I'm at CESD.
No kidding.
Yeah. Because when I made my animation demo, he directed it.
Ah, no kidding.
Yeah. He wanted to direct it. And then when it was done, and I was still at SBV at the time, and when it was done, he called me and he said, "Hey kid, send me your demo." And I said, "Okay, all right." So I sent it to him, and he sent it to CESD without telling me.
Oh my God.
And then I got a call from him saying, "Kathy Lizio would like to meet with you if you're interested." And I'm like, "What?"
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so he just kind of showed up at these different times in my life.
Yeah.
Very quickly, in and out kind of thing.
Yep.
And so when he asked me to be part of a DVD, I was like, heck yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we put together this DVD. It was it was long. It was a long, hard year. Oh my God, so many things
involved. So you spent
a
year putting this thing together.
We
in terms
did.
Of generating it and writing it.
We did. We lost 3 months of the year because my dog went missing for 50 days.
Oh my God.
That was crazy. Yeah, that was crazy, Josie. But she's home now.
Good.
Yeah. Wow. So we lost 3 months. And then it's hard to do something like this. It's not that easy to put it together and make it work. We had a lot of meetings. We had a lot of discussions about it. And then finally we put together this 3-hour DVD. It's an hour and a half of him, an hour and a half of me. We took 6 students that we handpicked.
Great.
That, really talented. Some were improv kids and,
awesome.
and a couple were, are working students of mine that are now working, and it was really cool. I mean, really cool.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And this is it's available.
It's available online, yeah.
Okay.
And it's at belltritel-vo.com.
Awesome.
So it's BELLTRITEL belltritel-vo.com.
Awesome.
And, or they can go to my website.
At LoriTritel.com.
Yeah, LoriTritel.com and email me about classes or the DVD. But it's a fantastic, way of communicating what's necessary in voiceover.
That's
the
fantastic.
Basic tools,
That's fantastic. It's just a wonderful introduction to both of it. And it helps encourage you to build those skill sets so you can make that transition if someone is looking, I'm thinking in particular, I have a friend of mine who recently connected to me who's beginning this journey.
It's really good. And I think one of the things that bothered me, honestly, about the DVD was that people would not get immediate feedback. Right? So they're doing the DVD and they're doing their reads and they're not getting feedback from Michael or me.
Yeah.
Unless they want to take my class, then they can.
Right.
But that was bothering me. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, when you do get feedback, don't you want it to be good feedback?
Of course.
Right?
Right.
Like, don't you want to kind of know what you're doing so that when you do submit an audition, the feedback you get is positive.
Yeah.
It's not just, well, it needs more warmth.
Right.
Or, it wasn't interesting. Can you brighten it up?
Yeah, be right to back and give me, really need to look at the labeling.
Yeah, you need to throw that away more.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. I remember when I first started teaching over at Second City, my intro to voiceover class, I was asking the guys over at CESD, the booth director assistants at the time, Mike Carr and George Carmona. And I asked them, it's like, what thing would you say?
Right.
To someone who's like trying to figure this out? Because you guys they were essentially the first gatekeepers.
That's right.
Send a reel and we'll look at it, and if it's in good shape, we'll pass it on to the agents.
Right.
So these guys know. Yeah. And George leaned back in his chair, and was like, bro, just tell them, get good. We'll be here when you're ready.
Nice.
I thought that was such a simple, concise way of putting it, of like, these agencies are not going anywhere. And it's something that Sherry would say to me all the time when we were in Chicago, too, and prior of like, I'm trying to get to L.A. I want to get to L.A. She's like, yeah, L.A. is still going to be there.
They'll be there when you're ready.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to steal
ready.
that.
Yeah. They'll be there when you're ready. So
and to do it before you're ready can be the kiss of death.
That's right.
You know, and
You don't want that meeting if you don't know what you're doing.
no. Well, first of all, you won't get that meeting. You might get the meeting based on your demo. You know, because if somebody holds your hand through the entire demo, almost anybody can make a great demo if somebody's holding your hand.
Right.
But the important thing is that you can deliver what is on your demo. And at our agency at CESD, I mean, you go in for your meeting, they hand you 10 scripts from every different department, and they go, okay, I'll be back in 10 minutes to get you. Look those over, and you need to be able to deliver all 10 scripts professionally, and you cannot read them all the same way.
Right.
So you really, and this is your moment. This is your time. And not only do they do that, but they also, if you do animation, will ask you to, give them an example of all the characters that you do. And so you kind of have to write or do something.
Yeah.
Creative to let them know what character. So you really need to be ready.
You need to be able to,
ready.
and to do your homework, man. You need to know the difference between a commercial and a promo read. If you don't know the difference between those two things, then you've got some legwork to do.
Absolutely.
And the resources that exist now are so vast. I mean, you can go on VoiceBank and listen to reels.
Which is a good idea to do if you're thinking of making a demo. I mean, I do that too. I'm like, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing now? What are they doing now? How'd they put that together? What's the order? How long is it? How many characters did they put on there? How many ages are they are they portraying in this demo?
Right.
I mean, it's good to study, but you really have to know what you're doing. And I think for a lot of beginners who take my classes, and my classes are like half like usually 2 or 3 beginners, and then the rest of them have some kind of relationship to voiceover, or they're either in the ad area or something like that, or they're singers, or they're in the entertainment business in some way. Production. I get a lot of directors, people like that, assistant directors and stuff. But one of the things that I say is that in the first 5 weeks of my class, you're going to learn how much you don't know about voiceover.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole country.
It is.
It really is.
It is a universe. And every single discipline within it is, we talk about, can you do promo? Can you do commercial? It's like asking someone, can you do Western? Can you do sci-fi? Can you do soap opera?
Right.
Can you do news?
Yeah, yeah.
And then finding a way to go, yep, oh yeah, I can do that.
Right.
Or, I could work on that. Or I don't get submitted so much for news.
Right. And for news, I mean, I was, one of the best jobs I ever had was for the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and I would go in regularly every week. It was fantastic.
Oh my God. What did you do?
I played news reporters.
That's awesome.
Not on camera, so I would match my voice to their mouth, and they would change what they were saying. It was so cool. It was awesome. Oh my God, I hated to lose that job. But
man, I love the side note. I love doing the late night stuff. I do a lot of stuff for Kimmel, and it's the most fun.
Yeah,
it's the most fun.
And good food there too.
Yeah, good food there
if they let you have it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So there's all different kinds of news reporters. You could do a whole class on just news reporters.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right? I mean, the difference between a news reporter that's on air and a news reporter that's live.
Yeah. That's right.
Big difference. Big difference. So, your job is to be able to, and we talked about this before we started the show, is to be able to give eyes to the listener's ears so that you are creating a scene with your voice that through audio only, you are creating a scene. And because if you just read the words, it's not going to get you the job. That's not to say that if you do a spectacular audition and you book the job from the spectacular audition, that they're not going to direct you back into a beige read for the job.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's happened to you.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Yeah. That's absolutely happened.
Right? Where you're like, I don't know. You could have hired anyone to do this.
Yeah, that's right.
But you have to get the job.
You got to get the job.
And so my job as a coach is to figure out what we're going to do to this script to get their attention, bring out the best in you, and get their attention.
You talked about, when we were talking before we got onto the microphone, I put a bookmark there and I actually remembered to dog it and bring it back, about being, with your face. It's important that you physically act as well when you're working in front of a microphone, if you're doing a character, or even just a McDonald's spot. You still want to have some kind of animation in what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to marry the facial expressions with the words. So a big challenge with my students who are on-camera actors or stage actors is that they do a lot of facial expressions, which are fantastic, but we can't hear them.
Yes.
So you have to marry the facial expression with the words that you're saying. You have to put those together so that we hear the eye roll in your voice, or we hear the hand going up in the air to raise your hand in your voice, or we hear the frustration because you can't get a jar open. We hear that in your voice because I can say, I can't get this jar open, which is what a beginner would do. Gee, I can't get this jar open. But someone who's going to put a physical thing in it would actually hold something and twist it and go, I can't get this, so the grimace in the face comes out of the voice.
Oh, fantastic.
Right? So, there's a lot of really great actors, who work all the time, and they go in to do voiceover and they're a little bit lost because there's a certain pacing that has to be, and we also have to keep all of our acting choices and condense them into 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. Right. For commercial or the 15.
Right. And there's all these tools and techniques to get it into 15 without losing the integrity of the read. But you have to know what those tools are because you can't sound like you're rushing.
Right. What do you do when if you've got 20 seconds worth of copy and you got to get it into 15? And the note is, Lori, we love what you're doing.
Need to lose 5 seconds.
But we need to lose 5 seconds. How can you do, what are choices that you make? If you've got a hypothetical, let's say for all intent and purposes, let's say it's a McDonald's spot.
Well, first thing you do, the first thing, there's a few things that I will do. But the most important thing that I probably do would drop the volume 50%.
Drop the volume 50%?
Yeah, because it takes less time to talk over here. This is my Playboy voice. It takes less time to talk over here than it does to talk at a normal. So you have to drop to 50%. You have to work the mic a little bit more.
Okay.
But the danger in that is that the challenge in that is that you can't drop the energy.
Right. So you've got to work your proximity.
You got to lower your volume 50%.
Lower your volume 50%.
And probably raise your energy.
And raise your energy even more.
Because you got to keep the smile.
Got to keep the smile.
And you know how I learned that? I learned that because I was doing a big Sears campaign.
Really?
And it was like 15 seconds a copy. It was like, this Saturday and Sunday, Sears is opening a brand new store and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And it was so fast. It was so fast, and they wanted it really high energy. And the only way I could do it was to drop my energy, my volume.
That's so interesting because my impulse is absolutely to increase my volume because my energy is up there. So I've got to go faster, especially with you guys, it's exciting.
It takes more time.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And you notice a lot, promo guys use that technique a lot.
Just take the
coming
volume
up
down.
next on NBC.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of pull it in, but the energy is so present.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways. There are lots of other tools.
How do you have energy when you're quiet? What are techniques or things discover that you do?
That's a good question. I mean, a smile.
Yeah.
A big smile would help.
I open my eyes wider.
Do you?
Yeah, that often helps me a little bit.
I'm going to try that.
It gives me more. It comes back to what you said about the missing, about pulling out deep catalog standards because it's a secret. So using that notion of, I'm going to tell you about this thing and it's amazing. And the reason I'm being quiet is because I don't want everyone to hear about it, even though I'm talking into a microphone and I want everyone to hear it. And it works.
It works.
But your natural enthusiasm for something Do you feel like you got to believe in the product when you're talking about it, or for that moment you do?
Yeah, that's where the acting comes in.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, that's where the acting comes. That's why we're voice actors. Yeah. And the other thing is that you have to play with the punctuation sometimes because people who are typing out scripts are typing them out grammatically correct.
Yes.
Punctuation and all that. They're
Word is making certain.
Right, right. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how we have to say it. So sometimes every comma is going to be a half a second.
Yeah.
Or a period. So sometimes we put commas where there are periods and sometimes we don't. But it really depends on the script, because other times looking at the script, I can tell, no, they typed it out this way for a reason. This is going to picture. You know, those are the other things that you always want to be aware of. Is this TV? Is this radio? And there are so many major differences between a TV and a radio read. Yeah. And you can find all of this out on the DVD. I talk about all of this in detail.
Yeah.
And how to apply these different techniques, so that when you do finally start auditioning, you sound like you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so important, because you get that chance to go in front of an agent. You want them to say yes.
You want them to say yes, and here's a stack of copy, and we've got time in the booth right now, and this is a national spot, so this would be a great way to start things off here.
Wouldn't that be great? Yeah.
Just all I want is just a shot to get in the booth and give it a shot.
Yeah.
If I book it, great, but at the end of the day, I want my agents to be happy with the auditions I give them.
Yeah.
And I'll only feel that way if I'm happy with it.
Right. I mean, you don't want to give your best audition on the way home from the audition. I mean, you're like, damn, I should have done that.
Right. How come my timing was off? I blew it. I was so great in the car.
Yeah. That happens a lot too. And sometimes we have off days, and you just have off days. But
do you record a lot at home? Or do you?
I do.
Yeah. I'm doing more and more of that lately. I'm not sure what that's about.
Yeah, I do record at home. It depends how busy my day is.
Yeah.
I try to go into the office like once a week, but sometimes no.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just, there's things going on, teaching wise or, other things going on that, I just don't have the time to drive in. So.
Yeah.
But I like going in. I like reading in the booth.
I really love the direction.
Me too.
The direction is very helpful. But the thing that I like about the home read too is the ability to. It can be death too, but I'll do playbacks. I'll do 20 takes of something.
I know.
And I don't need to do 20 takes. I'm getting better at that. I'm getting more confident. Like, here's my first read. I'll always read. I'll always roll on my first read, even if there's stumbles through it. And I'll generally always throw it away, but I'll learn something from it.
Yeah. I mean, there's times where I'm in the booth for so long, I stumble out of there like a drunk from an alley. I'm just like, light, you know.
What kind of a setup do you have at home?
It's really simple.
Yeah.
I have a very expensive mic, which I didn't need to buy, but, now I know better, but at the time I wanted the same mic as, CESD had, so I wouldn't have any issues with the sound quality. So I have a Mac laptop. I use Twisted Wave, which is a fantastic recording program. Very easy. I highly recommend it. And I have a little what do you call it?
USB bridge,
it goes in between the And
that's that like a Scarlett USB. Mine is a Scarlett, but it's something to plug an XLR cable out of your microphone and turn it into a USB signal.
Something like that. Yeah. I'm not savvy with any of this at all, but it works.
How long did it take you to learn to edit in Twisted Wave? Like, I know a lot of people, that's a stumbling block for people to self-record.
Oh my God, it's so easy. I could do a commercial for Twisted Wave right now because it's so easy. Phil Tanzini turned me on to Twisted Wave. I don't know if you know him, but he's a great VO guy, and he turned me on to Twisted Wave. And I was working with Pro Tools before, which was so stupid because
it's such overkill with Pro Tools,
Yeah,
right?
like,
I mean, you're never going to do anything more than record naked voice.
Yeah. Plus, I don't think it's not really Mac friendly. So every time they came out with a new Mac, Pro Tools had to catch up, and there was some time that you had to wait, and so
especially with Yosemite, I think it drove a lot of people crazy.
Yeah. So a Twisted Wave, and I just record from home, and you know, I'm in the closet with the dog kibble and the vacuum cleaner, and you know, I'm just in there. It's dark and scary, but it is. It's the worst to not be. Now that's another thing. You know, we talked about facial expressions in reads, but I'm a big advocate of physicalizing a script.
Yes.
So that as long as your mouth is in front of the mic, use that space that you have. You got to keep your mouth in front of the mic, but you can use the rest of the space.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're throwing a punch in a video game, you know, commands and fight scenes and stuff, throw an air punch. You know, I think a lot of beginners will stand with their hands locked.
Yes.
And we hear that whatever you're doing in your body is going to come through your voice. And when I'm working with students and they're not getting that, I go in the sound booth a lot. They're always like, "Uh-oh, she's coming in. I'm coming in. Oh no, she's coming in." You know, so I go in the sound booth and if they have to push a wall or something, or, you know, like in a video game, lift a heavy boulder and get rid of it because it's in the way of the charm that you have to get or something, you know? So like I'll stand there, right? And I'll say, "Push me."
Yeah.
Push me. Let me hear that grimace in the voice or whatever it is, and push. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of
it's
that.
like you were just doing with the jar, like you and in a funny way, I deal with that with object work with my improvisers. It's the same thing. It's like if someone is like, "I'm opening a jar," it's like, really, is that opening a jar? If you just twist it like that, that's like an abstract version of opening a jar. The reality is you're going to grip that jar differently. If it's a Skippy jar and it's an extra large size and it's kind of heavy because peanut butter's heavy.
Yeah.
It's going to take more effort to get that open at the top. It's easy at the back end, but it's the same thing. If you don't believe it, I don't believe it.
Right.
And the audience sure as hell isn't going to believe it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So physicalizing, I think, is really important. I don't know if everybody would, you know, all the teachers would agree with me, but for me, that's my style, and it works for me and my students.
It truly does.
Yeah.
There was something that you said that I thought was really powerful, and I'm glad you said it because I need to often be reminded of it. I think for myself was that with commercials, you're acting, and I know it sounds sort of obvious and rudimentary, but it really pinged me because a lot of times commercials people treat like they're not acting, that it doesn't take acting skill to be able to lift a commercial off the page and into the eyes and ears and hearts of people.
I think it does. And I think there's I know there's techniques to analyze a piece of copy. And I like to talk about, I talk about, how did that copy end up in your hand? What went on in the meeting that resulted in this copy? Yeah. Because they had a lot of meetings before it gets to you.
They had a lot of meetings and a lot of revisions.
Yeah. And it's for a 30-second piece of copy. So whatever is on that copy is important to the client. And it's up to us to analyze what went on in that meeting and this is what it resulted in. What are they trying to say? Yeah. What do they want us to know? Who are they talking to? Who are you talking to? Who's your market? You know, there's all sorts of ways to analyze a piece of script and overanalyze too. Yes. Right? Yeah. So you need to look at a script and know which one it's going to be. Right. You know, and
is it light and effortless, or is it they have a strong message?
Are you playing the announcer? Are you playing, or are you playing a character? Yeah. Are you the owner of the company? Are you the employee of the company? Are you a customer of the company? Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of things and who are you talking to? How far away are they? Yeah. And so depending on commercial copy has a lot of characters in it.
Yes, it does.
So you're either going to be the announcer or you're going to be one of the characters. Sometimes you're auditioning for both. Yeah.
And a lot of times you're not told. Sometimes it's just male, 30, 40s, quirky, smile. And based on those specs, looking at the copy will tell you who you are.
Exactly. So that you could write your own specs in a way. But a lot of times, most of the time when you're getting copy, it's because you already are the specs. In commercial copy.
Yeah, that's right.
You already are. I mean, Peter Verano said that to me once, and I never forgot it. He used to be at CESD, and he's an agent now with Sandy Schnorr, and he said to me, Tritel, you know, when you get a piece of copy, usually it's because you're the specs. You don't have to change your voice at all. Just be you.
Yeah.
So sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. I've tried it all different ways and still haven't booked a job.
That's the thing I love about this is that is that you have the freedom to make choices and the freedom to try different stuff and in how we live these things, in how we live a piece of copy and how we live a character choice or how we, I don't know if it's part of your process. It's certainly mine where there might be a 2-week kick where I'm like, I really want to try seeing if I can brighten everything up. Or maybe I need to work on my proximity a little bit and get a little bit closer and quieter. Maybe what I really want to capture is that fry in the bottom of my voice.
Yeah,
you know what I
nice.
mean? Like messing with that a little bit more and having the freedom to explore that and the room to explore that on active work.
Yeah.
Which is a nerve-wracking thing that you're like, this job that I'm auditioning for right now could make my year.
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. But you have to let it go in a way and be like, well, maybe tomorrow the job that I book is the one that could make my year. Or the one that it's just a, $120 demo that they're going to cast on camera actors.
Right. Yeah. You have to let it go. And I think that's another thing that we learn the more that we're in this business, in the voiceover business or acting profession, is that you have to let it go.
Yeah.
I mean, if I asked you what you auditioned for last week, you probably couldn't remember.
I don't remember.
I can't remember what I did yesterday.
Yeah.
So we learn that really quickly to let it go. And that's always a sign of a beginner to me is when someone said, well, I auditioned for blah, 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 and I don't know if I heard, I haven't heard back. And
should I send an email?
Yeah.
Should I? No.
No.
Let it go.
Just let it go and go on to the next one. There's going to be more.
That's right.
Yeah.
Lori, it has been such a joy having you on the show
It's
today.
been
It's
great.
so much fun.
And then we have the DVD, which I it's $80.
That's amazing. That's less than the cost of
a private session.
A private session, certainly.
And most
And
of the
then
time
you
a
got
dinner out, unless you're with a cheapskate.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but if you go to a nice dinner, it's $80 and it's so, I hate the selly part of it. I hate I get really uncomfortable selling
like I said, it comes from being even being evangelical about this work. And when you have something great and great advice and great information that people really are going to want and do want, then to be able to make it affordable is a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah,
and I think sharing that is really awesome.
I get really tired of hearing about how people are getting ripped off.
Yeah.
They're doing things that they're not, they're doing demos before they're ready. It bothers me. So this is something that for someone who's beginning or even seasoned, anywhere in the video there's going to be something that you're going to learn.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yay.
Yeah.
Lori, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Kiv. It was awesome.
Awesome.
So that was my conversation with Lori. Our hearts and minds and thoughts and prayers go out continually to her son and her family and extended family and friends, and certainly to all the people whose lives she has touched, from her representation, from her vast number of students and people who've studied with her DVD that she made with Michael Bell. Miss you, Lori. And thank you for inspiring all of us and for being a bright star in voiceover. More to come. Thank you so much, you guys. Peace. Thank you for joining us on All Over Voiceover with Kif VH. please take a moment to review the show and let other folks know what you thought. And if you dug it, please subscribe. Follow the show on Twitter at AllOverVO and check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/AllOverVO with Kip VH. That's it for this time. You get what you get and don't get upset. Claim victory and depart the field.